Welcome to the Course of Action Development lesson of the Operational Concepts MAP module. In the previous lesson, we covered mission analysis, process by which a commander and staff analyse their higher commander's intents to determine a confirmed mission, in conjunction with a list of specified and implied tasks to determine a confirmed mission in a given context within which planning may continue. Mission analysis concludes with a briefing to the commander and the receiving of his guidance.
1. Penetration from the south. 2. An envelopment from the west. And 3. An envelopment from both the west and the east.
The information contained within the guidance forms the basis for this next step in the process. The activities for course of action development are to create course of action concepts, test course of action concepts, and fully develop courses of action. The outcome from performing these activities is a range of viable courses of action that achieve the mission, shape the enemy for defeat, and achieve the higher commander's intent.
Battle Group Tiger is to destroy the enemy.
The resulting course of action overlays are sufficiently developed to be taken to the next step in the process, wargaming against enemy courses of action.
I want you to wargame all 3 courses of action.
In giving his guidance, the commander confirms the DEs and may also provide course of action concepts to achieve them. The staff orient to this guidance to construct course of action concepts that will achieve his intent. This process is achieved through the 4 steps on your screen. DEs provide a conceptual framework from which the course of action concepts are constructed. DEs encapsulate the most significant aspects of analysis from IPB and mission analysis. Prior to their inclusion in the MAP, courses of action were developed from doctrinal options, and the work undertaken in previous steps was not integrated in the concepts. With the advent of the DE planning step, this orientation has been achieved, although it is not intuitive and takes significant training and experience to perfect. The process of developing courses of action that are focused on achieving DEs is testimony to the significance of the process of formulating DEs. This screen highlights some of the considerations to achieve this by taking the concept of a DE and linking it to a tactical effect. At the tactical level, there is usually only a single line of operations, and this activity would be bypassed. However, in complex warfighting, it may be useful to consider lines of operations in military operations other than conventional warfare, or MUCAO, to synchronize the effects of control operations, information objectives, and support operations. In this example, the forces using Route Bravo move from the assembly area to feint, and this draws the reserve out to be disrupted by the second force. The main effort on Route Alpha is to destroy the enemy on the objectives, and the same route is used to insert the block force that is also the contingency to fix any possible enemy counterattack from the north. OS could be used in the counter-battery role to disrupt the enemy OS. Here, the lines of operation relate to 2 distinct forces on different routes progressing through a series of DEs that undermine the enemy's center of gravity and contribute to the achievement of the desired end state. Force ratios are assigned to each DE to determine the composition of the force to achieve the desired effect. Remember, however, that there are different ways of achieving the same effect by using different battlespace operating systems. This activity may be directed as guidance by the commander, or it could be left to the staff to construct. It is very much the art of tactics to bring alive the DEs through the various courses of action. To be sufficient to carry to the next part in course of action development, the concept needs to contain a start state, an indication of the avenues of approach used and how subordinate elements combine to achieve a scheme of maneuver. Shown on screen is an example of a course of action concept developed from DEs. Note how it lacks the detail necessary to be implemented, but is sufficiently robust enough to provide a framework to which the detail can be added. This example is tactically simplistic, but adequately demonstrates the point about creating course of action concepts. This model depicts an area dominated by a high feature containing an enemy position laid out 1 up and 2 in depth. The decisive terrain is the eastern depth position or objective 3. The enemy position is supported by a tank reserve and OS. From the MCOO, we have identified 3 potential FUPs marked as Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. The DEs for the operation are as listed here. Using the DE of disrupting the enemy defensive posture in order to clear the laterals, we can construct a course of action concept by building the scheme of maneuver around the doctrinal option. FUP Bravo would require 2 phases. One to secure the objective 2 and another to capture the decisive terrain. Choosing FUP Charlie would require a 1-phase simultaneous assault into objectives 1 and 3. The consequences of choosing either option impacts on how and when the other DEs are achieved, but not necessarily their order. What this animation should demonstrate to you is how the conceptual framework that is inherent with DEs can be turned into a tangible course of action. This is achieved through the matching of effects with the doctrinal options available to achieve the decisive events which are part of the commander's intent. Note how the course of action concept is based around using FUP Alpha. The feint DE is included using the northwestern approach and the reserve is dislocated using the force that feinted. The OS is targeted by an air mobile operation inserting an ambush group. The order that the DEs are achieved can be modified within tactical reason. Obviously, the feint should occur before or simultaneously with the main assault, but when the disruption of OS occurs is a matter of choice. Note also how all DEs are achieved in the course of action concept. Details like a phasing concept, main effort, and a broad allocation of forces could be added at this stage. The test is a useful activity to correct or discard course of action concepts before too much time is wasted in identifying significant deficiencies. If time is exceptionally tight, the commander can use the test to choose one course of action to take through the rest of the MAP. Courses of action that don't satisfy all the criteria can either be modified or discarded. The complete task list identified during mission analysis is brought out, and each of the identified tasks is assigned to either a subordinate headquarters or undertaken by the force itself. The outcome of this activity is a completed draft task organization matrix. During planning, it was identified that the best time for HR is 0400 hours. Working back from this time, we can calculate when to leave the assembly area by considering movement rates relative to the environmental effects. Movement for assault forces is by A vehicles through 3 kilometers of restricted terrain and 3.5 kilometers of open country at night. Thus, restricted speed at night is no more than 5 kilometers per hour, and open country is best speed or 30 kilometers per hour. This gives a total travel time of 36 minutes restricted movement and about 6 minutes for open country. The time past point for the whole force is calculated by vehicle numbers and spacing, which is 3 minutes. Thus, movement equals 45 minutes. Adding a fudge factor of 10% rounds this out to 50 minutes. Add to this an estimated 5 minutes to occupy a marked FUP, and we can deduce that the force would need to leave the assembly area at H-55 minutes. The support by fire, or SBF, securing the flank would need to be in position prior to occupation of the FUP, and the time for this force moving into position would be calculated in the same manner. All other DEs and activities would be synchronized to achieve the scheme of maneuver to draw out the reserve, with the effect being to dislocate it from the MDP. Command is both an authority and a battle space function. It is exercised during operations through the imposition of control measures. These include the allocation of resources to subordinates to achieve designated tasks by imposing measures such as boundaries, timing and the like to synchronize subordinate actions, and by the preparation of contingent actions. Within a mission command environment, such control should be only that necessary to coordinate a plan. Complex control arrangements can be difficult to execute in times of chaos on the battlefield and may constrain subordinates from acting in line with the commander's general intent as opportunities are identified. When task organizing a subordinate element, the staff ensures that sufficient resources are assigned to achieve the designated mission. This includes the integration of combined arms, supporting requirements by the parent organization for ISR, Maneuver, MS-OS, AD, and CSS are coordinated to provide contingencies and to ensure that all available assets are integrated in support of the plan. Given that the planning staff should have determined during the mission analysis step their purpose in the grand scheme of maneuver, it would be reasonable to expect them to be able to propose an intent statement to and for their commander. The course of action statements and overlays are the key outputs of the course of action development step. They provide the framework for the course of action analysis step. This step concludes with the course of action development brief, which can be given to either the commander or chief of staff. The aim of the brief is to seek guidance that the courses of action are acceptable to take to wargaming and to update the commander on the progress in the planning effort. This concludes the course of action development lesson of the Operational Concepts MAP module. The content you have covered relates to course of action development, which creates, tests, and fully develops courses of action. The outcome from performing these activities is a range of viable courses of action that achieve the mission, shape the enemy for defeat, and achieve the higher commander's intent. The resulting course of action overlays are sufficiently developed to be taken to the next step in the process, wargaming against the enemy's course of action.